Okay, so when I was looking at this stuff you sent me,
Hmm?
this question just jumped out at me.
Yeah.
It's like, is it easier to make a list of all the things you want to own or
Right.
like articulate your values, like the ones you want to actually live by?
Oh, yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, for me, it's way easier to just list off the stuff I want. It
Absolutely.
makes you think, right?
It really does, yeah.
Like, what does that say about us?
Yeah, it's like this really simple question, but it kind of gets to the core of
Yeah.
how we live our lives and how we think about money too,
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
And that's kind of what this whole deep dive is about, like
Yeah.
exploring that kind of tension.
Hmm.
And we're going to be drawing from David Bach's book, Smart Couples Finish Rich,
Oh, right. Yeah.
which we found thanks to Yemi Umuago,
Yeah.
this smart wealth advocate.
I love how we framed it all.
Yeah.
Just highlighting how important it is to connect with like your core values, the things that actually matter to you,
Right.
to make smart decisions about money.
Yeah. And it's so easy to just get bogged down in
Oh, totally.
the mechanics of it all, like the budgeting and investing.
Yeah.
But this is more about like building a life that you actually want, you know?
Exactly. It's got to be meaningful,
Exactly.
not just about stacking cash.
It is. It's about building wealth with intention,
Right.
not just chasing bigger numbers in your account.
Right.
So in this deep dive, we really want to help you uncover how understanding your values can actually lead to a richer, more fulfilling life.
Right.
One that goes way beyond just buying more stuff.
So it's more than just buying a fancy car.
Way more, yeah.
Got it. Okay. So what's the big question we're trying to answer here?
Well, the core question is, how can really knowing your values actually change your relationship with money
Okay.
and make your life better overall?
All right, so let's jump into this whole idea of stuff then, because Bach makes this point about how we can all name things we want, like that new phone or that vacation house or like a designer bag. But when you ask someone, what are your core values? They kind of freeze up.
Right.
Like they got to really think about it, you know?
It's true.
Why do you think it's so much easier to talk about the stuff we want than the stuff we actually believe in?
It's a great question. I think part of it is just the messages we get all the time from advertising and social media. It's always about buying things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And how that's supposed to make you happy or make you look good. It's like a super clear goal. You can picture it, right? But values, those are more inside you.
Yeah.
And you got to really look inward to figure those out.
Yeah, that takes work.
It does. Plus, society kind of pushes us towards certain things, too. You know, like markers of success. Even if those things don't actually match what we believe, it takes effort to tune all that out and just figure out what matters to you.
Yeah, block out the noise.
Exactly.
And Bach says there can be downsides to all this focus on stuff, right?
Right.
Like if we spend years chasing possessions without thinking about our values, it can actually lead to some serious unhappiness. He even mentions things like a midlife crisis or even divorce.
It's true.
It's like we fill up our lives with stuff,
Right.
but it doesn't actually make us feel fulfilled.
It's like eating junk food, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You feel full for a bit, but it doesn't actually nourish you.
Right.
And Bach contrasts that with how rare it is for someone to regret living a life that's true to their values, you know?
Later on in life.
Yeah, later in life.
Right.
And that says a lot about what actually brings lasting happiness.
It really does, because when your actions and your spending are in line with your beliefs,
Yeah.
it feels right, you know?
There's a sense of integrity, yeah. Like
Yeah.
you're being authentic.
Like Bach says, stuff may be nice, but it rarely pulls us anywhere worthwhile. Only values can do that.
Exactly, and that just highlights that
Right.
values are the real driving force behind a meaningful life.
Okay, so we shouldn't just be focused on stuff. But then what should we be focusing on?
Well, Bach talks about these three purposes of money: to be, to do, and to have.
Okay, break those down for me.
Sure. So Bach says money allows us to be,
Okay.
which means living in a way that shows who you really are and reflects your values.
So like walking the walk.
Exactly. It's about making choices that align with your true self.
Okay.
So for example, if you really value generosity,
Right.
money gives you the power to actually be generous.
Donate.
Right.
Yeah.
Through charitable giving.
Okay.
The second purpose is to do. which means using money to do things and have experiences that make your life better and fit with your passions.
Okay.
This could be anything from traveling to pursuing a hobby to spending time with loved ones.
Right.
And finally, money allows us to have, which is about acquiring material possessions, all that stuff we were talking about.
The stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting is that Bach points out, we often get this totally backwards.
We do, yeah.
We put having first, then maybe doing, and then being gets left behind completely.
Yeah, it's like the whole consumer culture pushes us that way.
You're sure.
It's always telling us to buy more stuff to be happy.
Yeah, got to have the latest gadget.
Exactly.
But Bach is saying we need to flip that.
Totally.
We need to start with being.
Right, yeah.
Figuring out our values and then making choices about what we do and what we have that support that.
Exactly. It's like when your having and doing come from your being, they have way more meaning.
It's not just about hitting some random financial goal.
Yeah, not at all.
It's about figuring out what money means to you.
Right.
What it means to me and how we can use it to build the life we want.
Yes.
A life guided by our values.
It's like Bach says, the process is basically a matter of looking really deeply at what is most important to you and then planning your finances around that.
Okay, so it's not just crunching numbers.
No.
It's got to be personal and value-driven.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense because when you think about traditional financial advice, it's so focused on numbers.
It is.
Like projections and savings rates and all that.
Totally.
Bach even uses this example of a 45-year-old making 50 grand a year with 25 grand in savings. Why did he use that example?
He's trying to show how limited a numbers-only approach is. Like traditional financial planning might look at those numbers and make projections based on like average market returns and savings rates. And that often leads to these huge savings goals that seem impossible.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it becomes this math problem that has nothing to do with the person's actual life or values.
Yeah, and Bach says that can be so discouraging.
Absolutely.
Like if someone's told they got to cut back drastically and reach these crazy savings goals, they're going to feel overwhelmed.
Totally.
They might even just give up on financial planning altogether.
Yeah, it's like you're setting them up for failure, and it makes them feel hopeless.
And he talks about people in their 50s who feel like they've already failed because they didn't hit these abstract numbers.
You're right.
It's so sad.
It is.
And this just proves his point.
Yeah.
Good financial planning has to start with understanding the person's values and their lifestyle, and then figuring out how to make the money work for that.
Yeah, the numbers should be a tool, not a dictator.
Okay, so we can't just blindly chase numbers.
Nope.
Now, this brings us to this really important idea. The potential clash between what we say our values are and how we actually handle our money.
Yeah, our financial behavior.
Right. Bach gives some really good examples of how this plays out.
He does.
Can you walk us through a few of those?
Sure. He talks about how this mismatch between what we value and how we spend and how we use our time can cause a lot of conflict and unhappiness.
Yeah.
Like imagine someone who says security is super important to them, but they constantly overspend and don't have any emergency savings.
Oh, yeah. That's not good.
Right. They're basically doing the opposite of what they say they value.
Yeah, like contradicting themselves.
Exactly. And that leads to stress and feeling vulnerable all the time.
Okay, what about another example?
Okay, how about someone who says they value freedom and experiences, but they're stuck in a job that pays well, but is super demanding, and they end up with no time or energy to actually do the things they enjoy.
So they're making bank, but they're miserable.
Yeah, they're financially successful on paper, but they're sacrificing what truly matters to them.
To get there.
Exactly.
What about family? I feel like that's a big one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
People say family comes first. But then they're working all the time to afford a giant house that they can barely enjoy with their family.
Right, like the financial decision to buy that house might seem like it's about providing for the family, but it actually prevents them from spending quality time together.
Wow, that's ironic.
It is, and Bach points out that these mismatches, they aren't just one-time mistakes.
Right.
They're usually part of a pattern of making decisions that don't line up with our values.
So it's not just about how much money you make.
Right.
It's about how you spend it and the choices you make.
Exactly. It's about how you use your resources.
And sometimes we have enough to live a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
But we're spending on the wrong things.
We are.
So how do we fix this?
Well, Bach suggests a pretty simple way to start.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says figuring out your core values
Mm-hmm.
doesn't require therapy or a philosophy degree.
Okay, good.
He says just take an hour.
An hour.
Yeah, maybe an hour. And write down your top 5 values.
Top 5, okay.
He thinks most people have a gut feeling about what's important to them, and this just helps bring it to the surface.
An hour? That seems almost too easy.
It does, but it's a good starting point.
Yeah, it's not months of work.
Exactly.
It's something you could do right now.
You could.
It's about being honest with yourself.
It is, yeah.
Bach also mentions this value circle thing.
He does, the value circle.
Yeah.
It's probably a tool he uses to help people categorize and
Oh.
prioritize their values.
But we don't have all the details on that.
We don't, not in these excerpts at least.
Okay. But the main thing is to just identify what's important.
Exactly.
And Bach ends this excerpt by giving us a glimpse of what's next.
Yes, he does.
He mentions a real-life example.
Yeah, a conversation with a client.
Right, to show how this purpose-focused financial planning works.
Uh-huh. And in Yemi's outro,
Right.
he hints that we might hear more about this example later.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, it would be a great follow-up.
Okay, so the key takeaway here seems to be we need to stop chasing stuff all the time and start focusing on what actually gives our lives meaning.
Absolutely.
Which is our values.
Right, our core values.
And then we need to make our financial decisions based on those values.
Exactly. It's about living intentionally.
Yeah.
So your money choices reflect your priorities.
That leads to smarter choices, but also just a more fulfilling life.
It does. It gives you a sense of purpose.
So for everyone listening, here's your first step.
Okay.
Based on what we've learned from Bach, set aside an hour this week and write down your top 5 core values.
Top 5.
Think about what truly guides you.
Yeah, what principles do you want to live by?
And then ask yourself, what's one little change you can make today to bring your spending or your time management more in line with one of those values?
It could be a small change.
Yeah, even something small can make a difference. And remember, Bach mentioned a real-life example.
He did.
So there's even more to learn here.
Yeah, if you're interested in exploring this more, you could check out more of Bach's work or maybe reach out to a smart wealth advocate like Yemi.
Right. Good idea.
Yeah.
So it sounds like when we match our money with our values, we're not just building a bank account.
Right.
We're building a life.
We are. A life that truly reflects who we are.
A life that excites and empowers.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Always a good conversation.
Always.
Until next time.
See you then.